All right, so welcome everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay. My name is Katie. I am an adult services librarian. I used to work here full time. I left in October, but I'm really happy to be back teaching painting classes. And I do marketing and public relations over at Northville. So if you're ever in the area, stop by and say hi. I'd be happy to see you. I hear exciting news. Maybe we'll be getting a new library, I hope. I really want to help out with that. So I'm hoping that happens. But thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I'm excited that you're all here and we're gonna paint some pretty spring flowers. Even though it does not feel like spring outside, hopefully this will all get us into the mode of spring. So you should have some pans of acrylic paint there, some acrylic or some paint brushes, and this is a palette knife. This is to help mix your paints together if you want a different color, if you want to add something to a color there that's already there, like if you want to put white in it. Acrylic paint is awesome because it's really flexible. It dries really, really fast, which is also a disadvantage. So you have to paint really fast with acrylic. Depending on how much paint you're using when you are painting with acrylic, it could dry a little bit slower. You can add mediums to it. We have all kinds of mediums available. I'm not here in the building, but you can get mediums and add it to your acrylic paint to delay the drying of the paint. And in that way, you can extend that process out so you can work with the colors a little bit more on the canvas. A lot of painters, if they're working with a larger surface area, they'll have an easel. There's a lot of standing easels out there that are pretty reasonable as far as pricing goes if you're interested in making this into a consistent practice. There's also some really good paint sets out there. I did not bring any examples, but I have to say, if you plan on investing a lot of time in painting and you're gonna do it a lot, you should get some tube acrylic paints. They're a little more pricey, but the colors and the quality is going to be better for your end product overall. They'll also last longer. As far as the condition of the paint, it won't flake off of the canvas like some of the cheaper paints, and you'll have some better vivid colors as well. All right, I have different paints from you. So we're going to do the best we can here. If you want to go ahead and get all of your materials all set up. I know the little canvases came wrapped in plastic, so if you haven't already torn those off, go ahead and do that. You can use the plastic to rip it, just don't stab yourself, please. And go ahead and just take all the tops off of your paint so it'll be easier to access everything.
On all of them?
Yeah, all of them. No, they won't. Yes. Then you also have this really shiny piece of paper that is like a plastic, it's got a plastic coating over it. This is a piece of palette paper. So this is like one of the more reasonably priced options that you can have if you don't want to buy a professional palette. Yeah, so what you do is you'll mix your paint colors on there. Or if you want to be super daring, you can mix your paint colors directly on the canvas, but that's only if you know what you're doing. Yeah. So we're going to have the canvas horizontal or hot dog style. So you want that to be laid out in front of you, horizontal on the table in front of you. So we're gonna prepare some light blue paint. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do like a flat layer of light blue across the top half. So you can, yes, you only have a limited amount of light blue. You can use that. If you have white and another blue, you can mix that together. What you want to do is you want to have it be a little more white and light blue up here, and then get a little bit darker blue the more you go toward the horizon. What this is it's perspective. So things that are further away, I'm sorry. No, this should be blue and go to light blue. I'm sorry. So things that are closer to you are more clear, and things in the distance are going to be hazy. That's perspective.
So dark to light. Can we see the picture again?
Yeah. So this is a very pixelated picture. We're doing the background first. So we're gonna have this really nice light blue here, and then go to like a hazy light blue down near the center of the palette.
By any some white?
You can add, yeah, you can add a little light, or you can just have a flat light blue. I'll ask Mike to make some copies. And you can use the palette paper to mix your blue paint. All right, so I cheated. I have a bigger brush, so this might take a little bit longer. But I have my blue up here at the top, and then I added just a little bit of light, and I kind of blended it in towards the center. If you want to get really experimental, you can use your palette knife to paint. Your palette knife, you can use that to paint. And then try to go down to like half where the horizon would be if you were kind of guessing where that is. So about halfway down. I know some of you are still blending some lighter colors into your blue, but for those of you who are at a point where you feel good about it, you want to use some green. We're going to do grass. So you could use the same brush if you want to. Blue is made, or blue and yellow together make green, so you're not going to hurt anything if you don't clean your brush. But it's better to clean your brush depending on what kind of paint you're using. If there's a particular shade of green you want, for instance, if you want a darker kind of green, you can add a little bit of blue to it, but try not to do too much of it. It'll make it into more of like a turquoise kind of green. So we're gonna fill in the lower half with green. And once you get to the horizon here, we're going to have some blades of grass kind of go up every which way. So you can just paint a flat green across the whole bottom, and then we'll add in our little grass. Oh gosh, what is that called? Thank you, like grass blades. Yes, yellow and blue together make green. All right, when you get enough green on the bottom, I would recommend using some light strokes to start your grass kind of going up. So you want to start from the bottom of the canvas. You can do more at the top and not go all the way down to the bottom. That'll give your grass some depth.
Should we do the edges?
Yeah, I think a lot of professional painters will paint the edges. You can leave them. This is more like a practice painting. So the blue is going to be a little wet still, especially if you layered it on. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Megan's making copies. Now, the whole goal behind this is to make sure you fill in all the white space. And if you pull a little bit of blue down, that's okay too, because it's just going to add to the green. If you put more paint, if you kind of layer it on, and it's really hard to tell on the screen. So I'm just going to show you real quick. I have a couple areas where it's a little thicker. That's going to take longer to dry. Thanks to everyone for bearing with the technology issues, and thanks for joining us online today. So with the grass, you can decide where you want that to end. You can have your blades of grass end at the middle if you'd like, or you can have it take up the whole subject area. So the whole surface of the canvas is is the working painting area. And if you want it to be more grass in there, like it's a little bit taller and kind of wild, you can bring your blades of grass up a little bit higher. But we are going to put flowers in this area, so you don't want it to be all grass. And that's a little bit easier to see. Yeah, so you want the forward direction up, like the grass is going up towards the sky. green if not. You can add a little bit of yellow to it to make it a more like a sea green, like a yellow, more yellow green. You can do that. You can add a little blue for like a darker green. And this is just for fun, so don't be super hard on yourself. You have another canvas, so you'll have another opportunity to paint too. All right, so when you get to a point where you're done with the grass, make sure you clean your brush fully because you do not want to have any green or blue in your flower unless you want a blue flower. Thanks, Meg.
Then you should find the right size image. Just make this one.
You can just say it's abstract art for your painting.
More paper towels.
Yeah, get a roll of paper towels. Okay, so I have to mix my pinkish, my pinkish purple, my purplish pink color. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And if anyone's interested, I know the library has books on like paint mixing in the actual like how to paint books that are available. And color theory itself, if you're interested, is super fascinating because it changes depending on what you're doing. Like when you're working with light, it's about subtracting. But when you're working with color pencils and painting, it's about adding colors to mix.
I'm just gonna pass out one to everybody. If you need it, they get it now. Hold on.
Meg's been a trooper figuring out our tech problem. She's been awesome tonight. Yeah. Oh yeah, there's plenty of if any is hopefully everyone's familiar with the library's online tutorials. It's called Creative Bug, and there's all kinds of fantastic arts and crafts projects on there. There's recordings. They have lists of supplies that you can gather, and you can watch the tutorials at your own pace. So you just go to the library's website, ltpl.org, and I forget what tab it is. It might be Explore. Yeah, and then it's all databases and look for Creative Bug. And then I'll ask you to sign up for an account first time. So you have to give your email address. But after that, you should be good to go every time you want to log in. And they add classes all the time. Creative Bug. It's like watching YouTube, but they're all curated tutorials for painting, any kind of art project you want to do by professionals. All right, I have my, it's hard to tell on here, but it's like a light purple. I mixed red and white first, and then I added a tiny bit of blue and I made it a light purple. You can use pink, or if you have purple, you can use the purple. And we're going to do, I believe this is called a cone flower.
Yes.
So we're going to do the purple cone flowers. If anyone's wondering, we're going to do the white last because we do not want to mess up the white.
Okay, yeah, but there is another purple. There is another. We have just two purple flowers.
Yes. Yes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. You can paint over it once it's dry and start over, and you have an extra canvas so you can try again on a blank one. Oh, I don't know if you can see. I'm basically going to add the middle and later. So I'm just doing the petals. And it doesn't have to be exact like on the image. I'm just gonna do little petals coming out from the center, and then we'll do the middle of the flower later. And we are kind of, we're rushing a little bit just because we have a limited amount of time. But normally what you would do is you would do each layer, you would let it dry first, and then you would do the next layer of painting. So I am starting from the center of the cone flower and this painting outward. There's like little techniques you can do with your wrist and how you hold the paintbrush. If you start from the edge of the flower and paint in, you can get a nice little shape that way. I think it's easier to start from the center though, but that's just me. And then the petals that are near the top, they're going away from the cone flower, the center of it. So you want to make them a little bit shorter. And it looks like they're stunted a little bit, but that's just the perspective of the petals going away from you, like in a curve. You could also load more acrylic paint on your brush and have it end, if you're starting at the center of the flower, end with more paint on the petals at the end, and it'll have this really neat effect on the petals if you leave more paint at the end of the petals. All right, so I'm gonna hold this up. I don't know if that's easier to see than the projector. So I was doing this one here, the one at the top. Yeah, we don't have to worry about painting the stem because it kind of blends into the grass. Yeah. Ooh, that's a pretty color. Ooh, I like how you did that. That's cool.
I'm just making them bigger.
Nice. Yeah, that's okay. Because we're gonna have
Are you making
different
them big?
flowers. Yeah.
Go bigger? Yeah, go bigger.
Very nice.
So it depends on which ones are you making? You making these? Look. Are you making
I like
these?
the cactus.
Just pick a spot. So really.
All right, so for the next purple cone flower, it's not showing the whole flower. You're only seeing like the top of it. So you don't have to do the top part of the flower. You don't have to do any petals on the top of it because you're kind of seeing it straight up because the center is pointing up toward the sky. And the petals on the other side kind of fall away out of your eyesight. If you're trying to do an exact replica of this picture here, you can gauge the distance between both flowers. And you can use your paintbrush, you can use a ruler, you can, if you're using your paintbrush, the way you measure it is use the tip of the paintbrush and then you put your finger there and you kind of eyeball the distance and you can place down paint in that general area. That's okay. It's a really hard thing to do. If I could share all of the mistakes I've done, there have been a lot compared to how many drawings and paintings actually turned out really nice. That's just what happens when you become an artist. And if you have a little green that's still not dry and it kind of mixes in, that's okay. It'll just make it look like there's more depth to the flower. Or you can just paint more purple over it.
Would you put the middle in it?
All right, if you want to, you can go ahead and paint some more of the purple coneflowers. I'll give you some time to do that, and then we'll move on to the yellow ones. Painting has been said to be similar to meditating, especially if you do a really involved painting and you just really get focused in it. You kind of lose all sense of time and space. It's pretty cool. Unless you get caught up in all the things that you don't like about your painting. Don't do that. Be nice to yourself. All right, I am going to move on to the yellow flowers. Oh, I guess you can't see.
Those are
This one here or this one?
Oh, what's the right? What's the middle? Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna do one of the yellow flowers on the left side. Do you think that's a coneflower or black-eyed students? Okay. I'm gonna do one of these yellow flowers, and then I'm gonna do one of the yellow and orange flowers on the right side. So one of these. But I'm gonna start with the all yellow ones because I'm not mixing anything together for that. It's just gonna be flat yellow. If you want to get fancy, you can put some white highlights on it after it's dried. Yeah. All right, so this yellow coneflower or black-eyed Susan, I'm gonna do is kind of growing up towards the sky. It's reaching up past the grass blades. So I'm gonna do this one. And the center of the flower is the topmost part of it. I am not gonna paint anything there, so it's just gonna be a flat like yellow curve to start my flower off. And it looks like the blue on my canvas is completely dried, so that's a good sign. I still have wet green. And the tip of these petals are very rounded. So if you kind of use your wrist a little to like move the brush to get that no point, you want a round shape there. And your petals do not have to be perfect. Flowers are really pretty, but they're not perfect. And your flowers do not have to exactly match the flowers in the picture. So you don't have to have the same number of petals. I think there's 7 in the picture. I have 5. Did I say flowers? I meant petals. Yeah. And with the flower petals, you can get really thick with the paint. It'll take longer to dry, so just be careful when you're taking it home, but it'll look really, really cool on the canvas. Are you done? Oh, really? Oh man, I've had like 2-hour painting classes in art studios at university. 2 hours, man. Yeah.
Katie, could you move the full image of the finished product into the screen more so we can see the daisies that you're working on? Or
Yeah.
the Susans?
I'm sorry. Let me move this. Can you see that now?
Yes, thank you. That's better.
Okay. Yes, I'll leave the finished photo on the screen for you. I apologize for that. You can blend with the palette knife. That's what it's for. So, oh, okay. Did you forget about it? All right. And some painters like to paint with their palette knives, but I hardly ever use a palette knife, and that's just my own personal preference. But feel free to use that. Just make sure you clean it off between each color that you mix so you don't dilute the colors. Okay, so the next flower is gonna be that yellow and orange one. And this one's gonna be a little more complicated. What you can do is you can paint the yellow petals first and then add an orange to the center and kind of blend it as it's drying so that it looks like it's going from orange to yellow. Or you can just paint the whole yellow, let it dry, and then add orange to it, but you won't get that nice blending. Or you can start with the orange and then blend out with yellow. I think the easier thing to do is to paint the yellow and enough of it so that you can blend with the orange near the center. And because the center of the flower is yellow, you don't need to worry about messing anything up because we can go in there later and add the darker color to the center of the flower. So because these petals are, there's more of them and it's really hard to tell their shape, you can get a little loose with where they are and get a little more, this isn't an official term, but blobby. Yeah, you can get a little blobby with it. Afterwards, if you do want there to be more discernment between each petal, you can go in and add that detail. So we're gonna get blobby with this.
Does anyone mind if I take some action shots of you all? Okay. Just let me know if I'm invading your personal. I don't want my nerves. Yeah.
All right. Mine, I tried to leave like a little bit of shape out there for the petals, but it still kind of looks like a blob. I'm gonna mix, because I don't have orange, I think you do. I'm gonna mix an orange for myself. And the way you get orange is you use yellow and just a little bit of red, because a little red goes a long way. Also, depending on the quality of paints that you get, you might get like a muted orange, so it's not very bright unless it's already a mixed orange. Sometimes that happens with lower quality paints.
Katie, did you say you had another yellow up front?
What's that?
Did you want a different shade of yellow?
I do. Does anyone want some? Do you want some?
If you have an extra amount, you can pay.
I can give you a little bit of it.
That's okay, I don't have mine to put down.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So this can be blobby too. I'm just gonna mix some of the orange paint in here from the center out. You can even just add some red if you have a lot of yellow on there, but just a little. I wouldn't go crazy with the red. And this is blending on the canvas. Also, it's gonna look a little bit different once it dries. It might get darker. I think the bluish purple flowers is that gladiolas?
No, they're not. Oh.
Is
No,
yeah.
I think so.
Oh, okay. I don't know my flowers.
I know what
If anyone in the Zoom wants to turn their camera on and show their work so far, feel welcome to do so, but only if you feel comfortable.
Susan.
Yeah, I'm trying to get all the paint to dry.
Oh, okay.
But I went a little heavy with my grass. My grass is even so wet. But if all of your stuff is dry. Oh yeah. Oh wow, look at that. That was real. Thanks for showing. That looked really good. Ooh. Ooh, nice. Nice brush strokes. I like it when you can see what the painter is doing with their brush strokes. When you get into realism though, they like to hide those. All right. I'm gonna do these like pinkish small flowers, like reddish pink. If you've already done those, feel free. Oh, you're welcome. All right, so I'm just gonna use my red as is. I'm not gonna mix anything to it. So it's gonna look darker than the image. And basically it's just a tinier flower. If you want to have distance in your image, you can create smaller flowers like in the background. So kind of along the horizon, line, and you can even hide flowers behind grass blades. Just make sure you don't show the full shape of the flower. You want to hide some of it.
You want to do this color here? That's for the center.
So I'm just painting the tiny red flower. I'm starting from the center and going out for my petals. Just being really careful here.
So that's in the middle of that one too. I'm using this for this. In the middle of the purple.
And if you have something under your canvas, you can move it around. You don't have to keep it horizontal if that makes it easier for you. Because it is small enough. Ignore this little blob right here. That's paint. That's not it. That's not the actual picture. I already got paint on myself. Okay, so the red flowers didn't take very long because they're pretty small. So I'm going to move on to these bluish purple ones. And because I use the red, I'm just going to mix some blue with it to get my purple. And I'm going to mix more blue than red because I want that darker purple. And I'm running out of space on my canvas right here where these blue flowers are, so I'm gonna move them. And these little like petals here are kind of, they don't really look like flowers, but they are. And that's because they're at a weird angle. So if you can just get like 3 petals going in one direction a little bit, you'll get that flower that's kind of facing away from you and from the viewer of your painting.
Are you working on the blue ones now?
Yeah, I mixed red and blue together because I didn't have purple. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, so I did 3 tiny purplish blue flowers here. So I have one here, here, and here. And it's not the full flower form, it's just like 3 or 2 petals showing. So if you want to add bees or birds, you want to make sure you have a very fine paintbrush. Very narrow, very fine. So you don't want to use a bigger one because then you won't get any detail. You want the smaller one. That one's used for little details. And the way to do the bee is to start with the yellow. You always do black last. Black and white, you always do last. And I would do white at the very, 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 very last because you can mess up white so easy.
Are you gonna add more leaf or grass coming up or stalks, flower stalks and
That's up to you if you want to do that. Because you want it.
the flowers are in the sky. So I will just have to add some green strokes.
Oh yeah. Usually you would want to do that first because it's more of the background. But you can add in more so it looks like it's closer to the foreground. The foreground is what you see first. It looks like it's the closest to you. So we can do that right now. I'll mix some green and white together.
Are we allowed to do our second canvas?
Oh yeah, if you want to. What time is it? Oh no, it's almost 8. Oh my goodness. You should probably save that for later. Okay, so I'm gonna do a stalk here. Are we going to 8 or 8:30? Oh, okay. Yeah, you can start it. You got half an hour. Okay. So I'm gonna add a stalk and some leaves to those smaller blue flowers. So I'm gonna go with the stalk first. I'm starting at the top and I'm just gonna do like a line down here. And then I'm gonna have some leaves come off of it. Yeah, just a lighter green. I had too much paint on my brush, so I got a very thick line for the stalk. Yeah. 8:30. Okay. Okay. If you want to add more leaves, then you can just kind of have them come out of nowhere since leaves are kind of messy anyway. All right, do you have a brown color? You guys have brown? Okay, perfect. So we can do the center of the flowers now. I'm gonna mix one real quick. So I'm using red, a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow, a little bit more of yellow. And I'm gonna add a little bit of black. I'm adding just a little bit more yellow, kind of eyeball it. Just a little more yellow here. And then just a little bit more black. All right. So the center of the cone flowers and the other flowers are kind of blobby too, so you don't have to be too careful. But if as long as you can get either a circular or an ovular shape there, you should be good. And you do want it to connect with the flower. So if you do have the perspective of the flower, the petals falling away from the center, you want to make sure that the center is touching the petals here, because you do want it to be connected. So if you're putting your brown down for the center and it's still wet, you can add a little bit of yellow to get some highlights. Because when light hits something, you'll see the highlight is where the light hits it head on, and then it kind of falls away into shadows after that, depending on the shape it's hitting. So you can kind of estimate where the light is hitting with these lighter colors on the center. So where you see the yellow, that's where the sun is hitting the center of the cone flower, and those are highlights. So you can kind of just dab a little tiny speck of yellow on there. You can even put a little bit of orange in the purple center, the purple flowers center of the flower. I don't know what those are called. I'm brain farting all over the place tonight. The purple ones I think are cone flowers, but again, I don't know my flowers. I'm just guessing. Oh, I don't know. That's a good question. So if you're doing the orangish yellow flower, you can put your darker color down in the center. You can just do it flat. And then once that dries, you can add some yellow over it for the highlight. Or even just for the color of the center. If you don't care about it kind of blending, you can add a little bit of yellow before it dries. All right, if you have room and you want to paint some white flowers and it looks like there's some area on your canvas that's dry, make sure you clean your brush off completely, get all the other colored paint off of it so it doesn't mess with the white paint, and then you can do that. I don't know. If you think they are, they probably, maybe they are. I don't know. if you work with a bigger canvas at home, when you do white flowers, they're not flat white because when light hits it, the flowers they have a dynamic shape, right? So the petals kind of curve in or they fold out. So when the light hits it from one side, you're going to see a little bit of shadow on the other side. So that means that there's some really light blue or light green if it's reflecting some of the grass or the stem off of it. White tends to hold light purples in it. Even if you just look at your paper towel, that's not a flat white. It's got yellow in it. It's got blue. So if you're working with more canvas, then you want to get a little more detailed with how the light and the shadows hit your petals. But because we're working so small, you don't necessarily have to worry about that. So the cool thing about acrylic paints, if you don't paint too heavy or too thick on it, you can get gesso, paint right all over it, and just start over again once it's dry. And I know these canvas boards are available in different sizes too, so you can definitely get bigger ones. Now with the bee, if you have markers at home, you could use markers on the canvas and that would make it mixed media. So mixed media is when you use more than one art form together on one canvas. So some people like to use colored pencils and markers and paint together. So you would do the paint. Actually, you would probably start with the colored pencil because you can paint over that, and you can't really color pencil over paint unless it's watercolor. And they have paint pens too. So you could paint traditionally and then you could use paint pens. Or you could use Sharpies for the fine detail, like the really fine Sharpies. Another tip is when you're getting started and you don't like to freehand draw anything or freehand paint, you can use a ruler and you can draw a grid. You would just measure it. So if, for instance, this is like, I'm just guessing, if this was 4 inches by 6, what is this, 5 by 7? So you could do it 5 inches and do a mark for every inch, and then 7 inches, a mark for every inch, and draw a light grid on it. And you would do the same thing for your picture too. You would draw a grid, but you'd want to make sure it's 1-to-1 with the dimensions. So you would want the longer edge to have 7 marks, so it wouldn't be 7 inches because this is definitely longer than it looks like it might be 9.5. So you would have to do a little bit of math to convert it. But then you would work square by square, and it takes away the stress and intimidation of trying to draw something freehand, working by a grid. And if you have any questions, I can kind of demonstrate that a little bit better up here. It takes away how overwhelming a blank canvas looks when it's all white and you're trying to draw a picture on it. There's also templates too. So you could get those plastic templates. It makes it a little bit easier, and you could draw using the template on the canvas. And then you don't have to worry about drawing anything. You had that template do it for you. Kind of like that. Well, that's why those are so popular, because all you have to do is follow the directions. So with the bee is like a half moon shape. So I would recommend starting off with a half moon or crescent moon to get your bee body. So that would be the shape of the body here is like more of a, almost a half moon, but more, it has a slight curve in it. So you get your kind of like crescent-ish shape in there. Start off with that. Then you can add the head. And the feet, the legs and the feet, super easy. Just a quick little brush stroke, like a curved backward C. And then the wings, I think, would be the hardest part because they're white and they're in this very difficult shape. Yeah, it's like a flattened oval with a point at the end. So if you can break it down in shapes, it makes it a little bit easier to tackle. If anyone attending virtually would like to share your painting with the group, feel free to turn your camera on if you feel comfortable to do that. We would love to see it.
How do you do the clouds?
The clouds, you'd want to do at the beginning when you're first doing the sky. I just didn't want to do and add more difficulty to it, so we didn't do it. So when you're first laying your glue down, and while it's still wet, you would add some white in there to the clouds.
Start with the brown and then the yellow. For the bee, did you put yellow?
Yeah, I would put yellow first. You always want to do the darker colors last with pink. Yeah. You do all your medium colors first, and then you go in with your dark colors, and then you do the highlights last. Thanks so much for everyone who attended virtually. I apologize for the beginning where we had some difficulty with the technology. So hopefully that won't be an issue next time, but we really appreciate you joining in on Zoom. We're glad you could attend tonight's painting class.